Be equipped, be prepared, be safe with Exquise Fire and Safety. System upgrades and installation in areas of service such as data centers, warehouses, office buildings, schools, government facilities, apartment buildings, hospitals, community centers, places of worship, and restaurants. You can get a free quote at the number 248-220-9048. This is and welcome to the Dating and Relationship Playbook with Chaz. I have a very special guest in this play in the relationship with the Dating and Relationship Playbook with Chaz. Not only talking about romantic relationship, but relationship with our family, with our friends, colleagues, profession. And so I got a very special guest, Jeff Kildow. Thanks for coming on, Jeff.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Chaz. It's always a delight to talk to a fellow Air Force vet.
Yeah, so one of the things I love to do is if I know someone that was in the Air Force, I always like to share, sit down and talk with them and for them to share their experiences because I was on the end for 6 years, but I enjoyed my 6 years in the Air Force, and I'm glad that I was able to, connect with you and have another Air Force vet on.
You bet. I'm still in contact with several guys from my original squadron.
Oh, really?
And that was clear back in the 60s, yeah. So
okay.
That's always cool.
Okay. We can start there. So one of the things, Jeff, that I really loved about being in the Air Force was one, in basic training, the camaraderie that we had as far as we would, struggle and help each other out, and it built a bond with us. And I still speak to and communicate with some of the guys that were in my flight, as well as the unit and the squadron that I was with in after coming out of basic and all the stations that I was at. Can you kind of like go into your experiences with some of the individuals that you work with, and I don't know, like I said, with us it was every base that I was in, Seymour Johnson. I started in Seymour Johnson in North Carolina, and then I transferred to Wright Pat in Dayton, Ohio after that, and both squadrons, both bases, it was like a family there. So can you describe, your relationships with some of your squadron or anybody that you connected with and worked with?
Sure. I went into the Air Force in 1962, and after basic, they sent me to Chanute Air Force Base for tech training. And my first assignment was at Fairchild Air Force Base, 92nd Bomb Wing. I was part of what they call plank holder for Hound Dog Missile Squadron. So we got there before the missiles did, and it was a pretty interesting time. I'm still in contact with several of the guys from that squadron. That one of the fellows went all the way up through senior master sergeant before he retired.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, that's great. And several of the rest of us got out after a 4-year hitch. So, but it's really good to be in contact with those guys. One of my closest buddies is suffering along with his wife as she is suffering from dementia. I went through that myself a couple of years ago, so I'm able to, sympathize with him and give him some advice and that kind of thing. So it really does help to have that long-term relationship.
Yeah. And how would you say, like, you've supported him in this season of his life?
Well, I had a number of organizations that helped me during the time that I was going through that with my own wife, and so I passed on contact information for some of those. He lives in Minnesota, I live in Colorado, so it's kind of hard to exactly hook up.
Yeah.
But probably the best thing I did, and I would recommend this to any one of your listeners whose family member is suffering with dementia or any of those related diseases, and that is a book called The 36-Hour Day, which talks about what it's like to be a caregiver for somebody who's suffering from that. It's almost like a handbook. It's really good stuff. It's written by two nurses who have done that kind of work for many years.
That's good.
Great stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That's good information. Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I know that you're an expert in, or you love, is World War II aircraft. And before you get into the aircraft, your father was in the war in World War II, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
He was stationed in Alaska as part of the 11th Air Force, which is one of those unknown units.
In your childhood, did he, share much about some of his experiences and some of the things that he saw while he was in World War II, or was it a little?
Oh yes,
too more?
all the time. That was a frequent topic. He loved to talk about it.
Okay.
And he had a pretty broad range of friends there, and he had lots of interesting experiences. One of his close friends was a Jewish fellow who was a navigator on the C-47s that they flew. He was in the 54th Troop Carrier Squadron, and they would fly down into the Aleutian Islands. So that was pretty risky stuff, and a lot of them were lost and never found.
Wow.
And he stayed in contact with this fella for years. I think his friend finally passed away in the early 90s.
Okay. What was a event that you can remember that he might have that he shared with you about a battle or a task or something that he experienced?
Okay, yeah, I remember one story well. Now, where they were there in Fairbanks, they were quite a ways away from actual combat. There was combat with the Japanese down in the Aleutian Islands, but not anything up in the mainland. And he recalled one night he was on duty, and all of a sudden they heard machine gun fire, and everybody about panicked. But it turned out what it was a P-38 that was sitting on the flight line, had a short in the electrical system, and it fired all the guns until the ammunition was gone. Nobody was hurt, but it sure got everybody's attention.
Yeah. How did you start getting into like the antique, like the war aircraft? Like what kind of sparked your interest in, starting to, like, I know you kind of like study them and you do go to museums. What kind of got you into the love for the aircraft?
Well, that was pretty much my dad.
Okay.
He took a lot of photographs while he was in the service. The airfield where he was at Fairbanks was one of the places where the Lend-Lease aircraft going to Russia would come through. So he had pictures of all the various American aircraft, like P-39s, B-25s, with red stars on them. Okay. It's really strange to see that kind of marking on an American airplane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he talked about how careful the Army Air Corps was then because of the cold, how long they would carefully warm up the engines and make sure everything that was working properly, He said the Russian pilots would jump in, and as soon as the engine ran smooth, they'd take off.
Okay.
They lost a number of them, too, because of that.
Yeah.
But over the years as a youngster, I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He and I would often go out to the airport to watch the airplanes land.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, and so at the time there were a number of light bombers from World War II that were being converted for executive travel. That was before the years of the Learjet. And so we would see things like Douglas A-26 that was converted to a high-speed executive aircraft. Really cool. It cost a lot to fly them, but they got there so much faster than the airlines could. All the same advantages that you have for a private executive aircraft today. And then, of course, he talked about the airplanes and the fighters, especially the 54th Fighter Squadron was based there as well. So he got to see all those. They had P-38s and P-38s and P-47s late in the war.
Okay. What did your father do in the Air Force? I mean,
he started out as a truck.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Because it wasn't and it's bringing back to my memory reading the when I was in basic training we had to read Air Force history because I think you said the Army Air Corps because before
that's right
the Air Force it was the Army Air Corps.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. The Air Force didn't come along till 1947.
Yeah. Yep.
So his job initially was as a truck driver.
Okay.
But as he came up in the ranks, they promoted him up into a position of dispatch NCO. So he was responsible for making sure that vehicles were where they needed to be to transport air crews out to the aircraft or getting fueling trucks or just, whatever needed to be transported around. He scheduled that and planned it. Kept him pretty busy.
Yeah. And so did you go into the Air Force because you were like inspired by your father?
In part, yes. There was another cold-blooded piece of decision making going on there. I'm the oldest of 7 siblings.
Oh, okay.
And my dad was a carpet layer, so there wasn't a lot of money for college.
Oh, okay.
And so he told me all about the VA and how they could pay for college for me, and so that was one of the motivators too. And so basically, I exchanged 4 years of Air Force service for 4 years of college. Worked out right for everybody.
Awesome. I also can relate to that. I got my master's paid for by VA. What did you do in the Air Force? Like, what was some of your roles? And
I was a missile maintenance technician on a missile that nobody ever remembers, the GAM-77 Hound Dog. You ever heard of it?
No, I haven't heard of that. No.
Okay, well, it went out of service in '72. That might have been before your time.
Yeah.
Today we probably would have called it a cruise missile. It was a large jet-powered supersonic missile, one under each wing of a B-52. You know the B-52s where they hang the outside bomb racks now?
I'm not.
You've seen those pictures probably. Yeah. That's the same attach points that the Hound Dog missiles went on.
Okay.
They were pretty good size. They were 43 feet long and weighed around 10,000 pounds. They were nuclear equipped. The purpose of them, now you got to kind of put your mindset back into what it was like in the early 60s. We were thinking if we had to attack Russia, it would be with B-52s, and we knew that they would see us coming and they would be prepared for us. So the object of the Hound Dog was to launch and go ahead of the attacking bomber waves to take out fighter bases and anti-aircraft bases and that kind of thing. Okay. So, and a little interesting thing, and it makes people these days, especially youngsters, laugh when I ask them, why do they think they named it a Hound Dog? And the answer to that question is because, drum roll, it could make a dog leg turn. Now that was a big deal because the missiles similar to it before, like the Matador and those kind, they would go from where they started in a straight line to the target. And once they were in the air a while and the Russians could paint them with radar, they knew where they were going and they could ambush them. But the Hound Dog could take off and go towards a false target, and then at some predetermined time it would turn and go to the actual target, which would throw the bad guys off. Pretty amazing stuff for back then, trust me.
It is. I mean, just thinking, and then like, you were describing the size of it. Do you know why they discontinued that? Was it just because it was just too large and we had to use more stealth, or do you know why they discontinued it?
I think the rationale was that nobody could see. Pardon me. Nobody could see a real use for it in Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
Because it was nuclear.
Oh, okay.
And by that time, the design was, it was designed 57, 58, went into production in 59. So it was pretty obsolete by then.
How often were they used? Because when you say,
they were never used in combat.
Okay.
They were never used in combat, thankfully.
Okay. Because when you say we're nuclear, I was like, well, I don't know too many, I don't think they, used too many nuclear weapons after World
War II. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the U.S. hasn't used any. No.
With you, going into the Air Force, how did you? Because I know you did 30 years. What was that?
I only did 4.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess I was misinformed with the 30 plus years of research or getting information. One of the things that I like to do when I was in Right Pat, and I think I know that you are familiar with, like they had a really cool Air Force museum.
Oh yeah, I've been through it twice.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah.
What can you describe maybe a couple museums that stood out to you, or a few museums that stood out to you, and why? Because when I went through there, like I said, I it was probably like 2017, 2018. I went a few times because I was like, man, this is awesome, and I've been telling my dad I want to get him out there because I know he really liked that. Can you go into a couple museums that stood out to you?
Oh yeah, I certainly can. I absolutely love the National Air Museum in Washington D.C. I've been through that several times, and to look at the actual Wright brothers flyer that started all of this is just astonishing.
Yeah.
And for me, there was a special thing. You see, we didn't get into my professional experience, but I was an engineer for 34 years. And my first job as an engineer, once I got out of school, was working on the Skylab mission.
Okay.
And long story that I won't go into, but the Smithsonian ended up with what would have been the second Skylab mission lab. So I don't know what's on display now, but it has been. I was able to take my kids when they were in their early teens to Washington, D.C., and I let them tour through the lab, that I had been associated with when it was actually flying. That was really cool.
Okay. Yeah, that is cool.
Another museum that I've been to recently is the Museum of World War II in Colorado Springs. It's at the airport that's part of Peterson Air Force Base. The interesting thing about that museum, it's World War II stuff, and the museum itself doesn't own any of the airplanes. That's kind of interesting. They're all owned by wealthy people who have purchased them and had them restored.
Oh, okay.
And these guys maintain them, and they fly them all.
Oh, okay.
It's amazing. Oh yeah. They recently this last fall they flew their Helldiver, one of only I think 2 or 3 that are left airworthy that they had restored, and it was a really big deal in the antique aircraft world. But that's a great place because it's open, it's accessible. You can walk right up to the airplanes, and they have the ability for you to go to their shop at the back, where they have all these wonderful machines that they've collected around the country, used to build airplane parts. You know, these antique machines that were used during the Second World War that somebody has tried to scrap, and they rescued them, and they still use them. An example of the extremes they go to this, I when I first time went through it, one of the museum docents took me around, and he showed me the wreck of a P-47 Thunderbolt, and told me that they had dug it up out of the ground on one of the Pacific Islands, you know, when it was damaged and they couldn't use it, so they just put it in the hole and covered it. And I made some comment about that was really going to be a hard restoration. And he turned me around, and sitting right there beside me was a P-38, which they fly. And he said that came out of the same hole.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to see some fabulous stuff. One little tidbit from that museum. They have a guy there and a machine there that allows them to repair propellers. You know, that's one of the more difficult things to do because each airplane had distinctive propellers, and some of them can be really hard to find. So if you find one that's bent up, but it's not too bad, you could send it to this guy, and he can restore it and make it flight worthy again. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I know you, like I said, you're you know, and you do research on, you know, these historical facts. What's a fact that you learned in your research at World War II that this interesting, or maybe somebody doesn't know?
Okay, yeah, I could sure address that. I did a lot of research on my first book called Nazi Menace. Much of it takes place right here in the United States. So I discovered early on that there's not a whole lot written about what it was like to be a civilian during World War II.
Okay.
You know, that always kind of shocked me when I thought about it. You would think, you know, with all the war histories, there'd be something there to accompany it, but not so much. One of the things I discovered was there was a line of defense districts that ran from northern Maine to the southern tip of Florida that had been established a long time ago. And as we got into World War II, I discovered, and they discovered it and hid it pretty much. These various districts range from like the entire state of Rhode Island or to somebody's home on the beach, you know, that big of an extreme in area.
Yeah.
They had reporting requirements, one of which, and this was in Florida, I think, still required a letter to the King of Spain.
Really?
Yeah, and there was the weapons, the few of them that had weapons, they were mostly from the Spanish-American War. You know, that was before World War I.
Yeah.
And they if they had any intent, they were designed against ships. No thought had been given by anybody to defending from the air. Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And there was no coordination among them. I mean, some people could phone in their report, some could mail it in. You know, there weren't any radio connections, even though radio was, you know, widespread then.
Mm-hmm.
There was no connection. So, sometimes, in a couple of instances during the war, they went to check on a certain area, and they find out that the person responsible for it had passed away, and none of the heirs knew anything about the fact that it was part of a defense district.
Yeah.
So we were extremely vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that I took advantage of that in my story.
What exactly is that defense supposed to, like that defense line supposed to, what, because I know you said sending reports certain, what exactly was their role?
Well, their role was to initially it was to defend against any counterattack Great Britain after the Revolution. And then there were also the problems they had with pirate ships, especially farther south, But it was that was the idea, we're not going to let anybody land here. But
and like you said, that was for civilians. Were they supposed to have weapons, or were they?
Yes, some of them did. Yes, yeah, and some of them were set up so that they would call in the local militia to use whatever artillery they had.
Do you know if anything actually was? Did they have to actually use anything, or
no, they didn't. Not during the war.
Okay.
No, that I was able to uncover anyway. There might have been an incident that I don't know about, but I'm not aware of one. And it's probably a good thing because we were flat on our backs as far as defending against aircraft. Mm-hmm. The airplanes would have been to whatever target they were before anybody could find a phone to call.
Yeah, yeah. As we close, I know you have a couple novels. One being America Under Attack.
Well, that one is being replaced. With that was a first novel that had a lot of problems with it, so we completely revised it, and it's being republished in a couple of weeks under a new title, Nazi Menace. And a new cover and all of that. And that one takes place during World War II, as we discussed, much of it here in the United States. The second one is called Red Menace, and that takes place against the background of the Korean War. The Korean War is not involved in it, but it's ongoing in the story. And then and that involved, that involved officers trying to avoid the RIF after World War II.
Oh, okay. Okay.
For listeners, RIF is reduction in force, and that was where Congress foolishly decided there'd never be another war after World War II, and so they were firing everybody, no matter what their rank or their combat experience. And so we were kind of down on our backsides when Korea popped up. And then third book is called Fourth Reich Menace, and that takes place during the time of the 1956 Suez Canal crisis, which most people don't remember because that was the same time that Russia invaded Hungary and put down that revolution in such a bloody fashion. So it's a series, so we have some of the same characters to go from one book to the next.
Okay, cool.
And we watch the progression. I start with my hero, whose name is Joel Knight. He's a 1932 graduate of the military academy at West Point, because, of course, that was long before the Air Force Academy. And the story starts for him in 1936, and he's this brash first lieutenant. And then I take him all the way through, and by the time I get to the end of Fourth Reich Menace, he's wearing 2 stars. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. What prompted you to start, begin this journey of creating these novels to a World War II?
Well, first of all, I had a long-term interest in it. I was reading books and so on. And I went to a couple of air shows that had some World War II stuff in it, so that really got me fired up. But I've always been a very heavy reader. Okay. And in the early 2000s, I was reading some little potboiler, and it was not very good. In fact, it was very bad. And I literally threw this paperback book in the corner and said, I can write better than that. So I tried. I retired from Lockheed Martin in 2006. That was my second retirement. We won't go into that. But by that time, I had written about 30,000 words, and I thought I was well on my way. Then I went to a writer's conference, and I found out what it's really like, and I came home and I threw away about 20,000 words and started over. So it's like any other craft, you have to practice it for years before you really learn what you're doing.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
I want to say that you definitely, because I'm an author as well, and I feel like the first if I read some of my first work, that I was like, man, I can do a lot better now. So yeah, you definitely
Yeah.
you could definitely have to you definitely get better over time.
Yes, sir. You sure do. If you don't, you better find something else to do with your
Yeah,
time.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's good. Before you we as we close, was anything that you wanted to share that we didn't go over with Air Force history or any aircrafts or anything that you wanted to
Hmm.
talk you wanted to share that we didn't discuss?
Sure. One of the things for aircraft aficionados, I in all three of these books that I mentioned, I have snuck in the most obscure aircraft I could find. It's real. I mean, in a couple of them, there's aircraft that I invented.
Okay.
Part of my imagination.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I would sneak in these obscure aircraft just to see who was paying attention. And every once in a while, somebody will bite. They say, "That's not real. Go look it up." It's so satisfying. And the other thing that I always like to point out is that my books, despite being called, they're alternative history or military thrillers, there's no bad language in them, and there's no compromising situations in them. I literally have had my pastor read them, and he enjoyed them.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
that's kind of cool.
I love.
And for
love
the ladies, I always tell this to the ladies when I'm doing a book signing or whatever, that all of my stories have a love story associated with it. Not a romance, but a love story.
Okay.
And I have strong women in all my stories just because I've always been associated with strong women, and that's the kind of ladies I like.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, what's the difference between, because you said a love story, not a romance? I thought they were kind of like one and the same. How do
well, you know what? When I was first writing this, I was schooled on this by my sister. A love story is something that generally ends up in marriage, where a romance may be just a summer fling.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay. I didn't appreciate the difference either. I confess.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Guys don't appreciate that stuff, I guess.
Yeah. I didn't know. I was like, well, I thought they were kind of like the same thing, but if that's her definition, and I'm gonna go with it because
there you go.
I go with it, so that's awesome. But that's one thing that's really cool about being an author and then being able to write novels and publish novels is you can create things that like you said you created some made up aircraft, but then you can throw in some things that maybe people didn't know about because your aircraft history. So that's awesome.
Yes. What I did along those lines is I've collected reprints of the pilot manuals for about I think I've got 8 different ones now.
Okay.
So that if you're trying to describe what it's like to take this airplane off from grass instead of a runway, you need to know the difference. And I can throw that in there, and that adds authenticity to the story.
Yes, exactly. Well, this was another incredible podcast episode. This was the dating and relationship playbook with Chaz. I had Jeff Kildow on. Thanks again, Jeff, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Chaz. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, me too.